being a 10x engineer or a great engineer should be your own metric before anybody else's, right? So you join a startup, you're the greatest hotshot guy because you're just writing code and you're not following best practices or whatever, but you're delivering code. In that startup, people will say, "Kya banda hai, kya such great engineer," right? You that same guy then joins a FANG company, and the engineers over there tell him, "Ki, he doesn't know basic things like code quality and code metrics." Right? So greatness cannot be a moving goalpost. Remember that. So first and foremost is greatness or 10x ability or who are you should come from within, right? Then you can measure it with peers or compare. You should generally not compare because it changes as well, right? So remember that, right? You don't have to think of it as somebody else telling you whether you're 10x or not. The other thing is that as an engineer, these basic things do matter. And I'm not going to be talking about them throughout the course of this conversation because this is hygiene, right? Ability to write good code, clean code, system design, system metrics, architecture decisions. And it changes also, right? Where you are in the career. If you're early in the career, then really understanding technology is going to be your forte. That's what will matter to you. But as 10-year experienced engineer, for them, knowing tech is like the most basic thing. Nobody's going to give you any brownie points for that. But as a 10-year experienced engineer, you're supposed to know the domain. You're supposed to know, the business problems and all of that. So the idea is that the greatness or the 10x part will keep moving. But still, if you think about it in the basic terms of an engineer, that can I write code well? Today we are in a place where writing code well is not really the highest bar or the highest measure of being 10x, right? What does that mean? Today, ChatGPT, low code, no code solutions can deliver bug-free code. 6 months, 1 year down the line, what you think, hey, I'm writing a lot of code, I'm writing great code. ChatGPT is learning from you only, from the open source that we have put out, right? And is doing exactly that. So maybe 1 year later, what will 10x mean is what is important, right? So in my experience, what I've seen, who is a 10x engineer? A 10x engineer is one that simplifies everything, right? Simplification is what really is a 10x metric according to me. And what does simplification mean, right? Simplification mean taking a problem statement, bringing it down to first principles, right? Solving it with first principles, because complexity is all over the place, right? uh, any product that we are building, it's very easy to complicate it. That's why you have words like MVP, MDP, because we know what the final outcome looks like, right? It looks like Salesforce, it's like Google, but koi nahi bolta ki chalo Google banate, right? People try to simplify first. Ki what is the first thing that we can build? What is the smallest thing we can build, right? And that is true on the engineering side also. I've seen many engineers coming up with these huge architecture diagrams that I know will take 6 months to build with a team of 5 or 10, versus a really great engineer will come and say, "Hey, Arif, maybe we can just take this open source and just plug it together and it will start working," right? And it'll do exactly what we want to do. So simplification and focus is, I think, one of the important traits of a 10x engineer. The other thing that I've noticed, that I've always seen in good engineers or great engineers, is that they constantly bring new things to the table, right? Many engineers are very happy where they are, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, don't take this as that you have to do these things. Many people are very happy where they are and what they do, and it's their choice. It's your choice ultimately, right? But what makes engineers 10x or great in my mind is that they will constantly keep stirring the pot. That's how I would define somebody, right? That somebody I don't need to go to. They'll come and say, "Hey, Arif, there's some new tech coming in. Can we try this?" Right? When ChatGPT came out, a couple of conversations started happening in my engineering team where they said, "Can we use this?" without anybody asking for it, right? So this is also something that I've noticed that really, matters. And then if you distill this down, right? If you distill whatever we talk about today, right? One of the important things about a 10x engineer is that they're role models. People love to want to become them, right? Uh, like senior folks, or just not about seniority in terms of experience, seniority in terms of what they have done in the company, I would always notice people rallying around them. Right, they're always around them. They're like, अरे इसके साथ बैठेंगे आधा घंटा तो कुछ सीख लेंगे, right? He'll talk about, he or she will tell us something amazing, right? So I think that ability to become role model, and it's hard work, right? It's not easy. You just don't wake up and say I'll become a role model. You have to put in that effort. You have to deliver those things. You have to lead from the front. But 10x engineers generally have that ability. And again, I have, it's age is no bar, experience is no bar. I've seen that happen with 6-month interns also, where people will come and say, hey, can we talk to this guy? Right? Maybe I want him in my team. I've had those arguments when I'm doing people allocation, right? Where a senior person will say, I want this 6-month intern guy in my team. Right? I want him, otherwise I won't be able to deliver. That for me is a 10th engineer, right? That's what and everything, of course, underneath all of that is, that person probably knows about technology better than others. That person is probably a hardworking person, right? That person helps others, all of that. And we'll talk about a few things as we go along. But that's what it comes down to. So I get constant feedback as a leader. I get constant feedback that I want to be working with this person, right? That's what makes a 10x. And just to sort of again summarize this, right? A 10x engineer will create value daily, right? And it's a very simple statement. It's like creating value means what? I'm an engineer. I'm just writing code. I have 2 modules to write. Somebody's giving me a bug. I'm solving it. Uh, what's the surprising fact is you have to realize that even while you are doing those things, you can create value. And the way you create value, right, is at multiple levels. You can create value for the customers. How do you create value for customers if you're solving a bug, right? You create value by asking questions. Why am I solving this bug, right? Why am I spending 2 hours of my day, building this module? Asking the right questions could create value. Your product manager will start thinking, "Arey, this is great. Why should we be solving this?" Then creating value for your company. You'll be like, how do I create value for my company? Of course, there's a bottom line revenue impact, but you can help the company by hiring the right people. 10x engineers always do that, right? They want people better than them, right? I've seen interview feedback where a great engineer will come and tell me, this is somebody I want to work with, right? He'll definitely add value here and there. Not somebody who feels insecure. कि अरे ये आ जाएगा तो मैं क्या करूंगा, ये तो इसको तो सब कुछ आता है, right? What will happen? So throw that, people who throw that insecurity out of the door and basically focus on creating value for the company, that's also something that's important. And of course, that work with the team and delivering excellence. Having said all of that, at the end of the day, 10x engineers are the most fun people on the planet, right? Because they're enjoying their work, they're enjoying their team surroundings, they're enjoying the problem that they're solving. If you can see genuine happiness in an engineer every day, and of course, there are good days, bad days, but if you see that genuine happiness saying, hey, I'm here, I'm doing something great, I know what I'm doing today, I think that differentiates. Otherwise, most of the people, they'll come, they'll see it as a job, they'll see it as a work, and others will also notice, right? So I think that's where that is. So this is what I feel like 10x engineer constitutes of, right? And I'll take a pause here. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer before going to the next one.
All right. So, one quick thing before we understand, I mean, this is going to be a very popular question and has been asked times. Can we put a number to it? I'm not talking in terms of it's very subjective question in itself. But can we put a number to the difference in the salary ranges in terms of percentage? Like how different do they end up after a certain while? And because people have different motivations. One motivation is obviously that a person should be enjoying the problem that they're solving. But at the end of the day, it's also about paying the bills. So when it comes to the CTC perspective, I'm sure this is. I mean, I repeat that this could be subjective, but is there a percentage difference in the amount of money that people are making, and what percentage truly do you see in any composition, let's say a large enterprise or a small organization, what percentage of people belong to that category, who are doing all of that and earning more and can be categorized as 10x?
Um, well, okay, there are a couple of questions in there. I'll try and take one by one, right? So how many are 10x engineers, right? I think again, this is very subjective because like if you look at the Facebook metric, right? E8, E9, which is the highest level of engineering roles, there are only 50 of them. The last number I had, right? There are about 50 in the entire Facebook uh, organization that fall under those really rock star 10x engineers type, right? Of course, their compensation is going to be very different, right? And the way I look at it is that, first of all, their rise within the company is never linear. They don't go from software engineer one, two, three, four, and all of that. Even if they're going through that, they are probably jumping through them in 6 months, 8 months, like that, right? They're very quickly growing. So generally, their growth is exponential, right? They'll probably start leading a team as early as 2 years, 3 years, 4 years experience, right? Um, and the compensation side, at least in startups, the way I have seen many founders do it is at the moment you identify a software engineer that's going to really impact your company's growth, right? Not say is going to just sort of incrementally improve the system or incrementally improve the product, but is going to significantly do that, right? Maybe uh, take you to a newer market, or maybe solve a technical problem that cannot be solved by others easily, right? uh, the compensation is also significantly different. It could be the fixed base component, or it could be the stocks, right? Like in our organization, what we know generally do is that high performers would get a huge chunk of ESOPs, because we want them to participate in our company's growth as well, right? They are also contributing, right? So we have to compensate them back. And one thing that you mentioned, and I feel that people should really think about it, is that it's not about just paying the bills. There is no harm in having the right expectations financially for your own growth, right? To be able to say, "Okay, yaar, I'm in this role. I'm here to make money. I'm here to, grow." It doesn't matter whether my bills are being paid by myself or my parents, because I come from a stable family. It doesn't matter. You should get what you deserve, right? And if you deserve, you're contributing. If you deserve that, you are seeing the impact of your work. You're seeing, how much you put in is being recognized by other team members or your leaders. You should definitely demand for that, right? um, so that's how I see it. And yes, it is a huge spectrum. It depends from company to company how they treat their 10x engineers, but in general, yes, the rule is that the difference would be vast, right? And age plays no role, experience plays no role. Remember, the day and age where we are at, solving technology problems is now the smaller piece of the puzzle. पहले ऐसा होता था, you were writing C code, and you didn't have more advanced technology, so you were spending more time writing code just to solve smaller problems. Today, writing code is not even needed in many cases. ChatGPT will give you the code. So then what should an engineer do? Right? The engineer impacts the company, impacts the team, and therefore, it leads to better compensation as well. I hope that covered it.
Yeah. That definitely does. I wanted to discuss the growth journey next, but I think you've already covered that point pretty well in this one. Uh, so that's one thing that is covered. Uh, Another question that I wanted to ask you. I mean, a very stark difference in uh, a question that I saw, which is of a specialist versus does the technology matter? I mean, a specialist versus a generalist. Because there was this question that I saw which said that what is the difference between Node Java or Python developer versus a software engineer, SDE 1, 2, 3. So being a specialist, does it reward more, or being a generalist and being hands-on with multi tool, is that more rewarding? Because in the other side of it, at one side of it you get focus and expertise. On the other side of it, you get variety and sort of dynamic kind of work nature.
Got it. Got it. That's a great question, and I think I hear that a lot. Um, I So the way I look at it, and every leader would look at it in a different way, is that there's a clear difference between skill and knowledge, right? Especially when you talk about being a specialist versus a generalist, right? What I mean by skill versus knowledge is that if you are thinking that by being generalist, I mean I can write code in three different languages, right? I'm a polyglot. Without understanding the fundamentals. I just know how the Java functions are or the JavaScript methods are. I know how to do, like, say, callbacks or async await methods, right? Asynchronous programming and all of that. I think that's something that you should avoid. In any case, whether you are a specialist or a generalist, knowing the fundamentals is hygiene. Like, I'll tell you how I interview people, right? When I interview people, I hardly ever ask questions ki bolo, how would you write this in JavaScript? There are rounds that do that, where we take hands-on programming, but when it's my round, I specifically focus on fundamentals. And honestly, today a lot of people are staying away from fundamentals, right? And what do the fundamentals mean, right? These fundamentals basically are: do you know your system design, right? Do you know your network stack? Can you tell me the OSI model, right? Can you basically tell me the internals of a database, right? You know how to write queries. If I would have asked you a question, ki join two tables and write some complex query and give me an answer, 90% of them would do that. But the moment I ask ki, how does a query engine work? What is query planning, right? How do I optimize my queries? Most of the answers, and because I think the audience is very technical, they can relate to this. They'll generally say, "Oh, we write log statements, and the log may we get the timing and all of that, right?" But a very handful of them will say, "Oh, I know what explain plan means, right? How can I explain the query plan? How can I add the right indexes?" So this is hygiene stuff. You should know the basics. And if you come from a CS background, this is taught very methodically, right? There are, in your curriculum, there will be courses where somebody will teach you algorithms, where there'll be a course that teaches you system fundamentals and all of that. But if you're not from a CS background, you should still pursue and understand these basic things. So that's hygiene, right? Uh, Beyond that, the other thing I feel which helped me and a lot of engineers that I work with is you should know at least two or three languages in general, or stacks, right? Whether it be front end, back end, mobile apps. Like, I've done pretty much. I mean, I've been here for 16 years, so I've had a chance to be hands on all of this. What has that done is that today I don't know how to do Android. If you ask me, Arif, go write an Android app, it'll take me at least a week to just refresh myself. But what it helped me is that because I'm exposed to all these stacks and various tech, it makes me make better decisions, right? And there's a professor out of Harvard who really put it in a very good way, right? He calls it heuristics and applications. What it means is that once you so heuristics basically mean that you find a solution to a problem, right? But how do you apply it to different areas? That could be many ways. So let's say, for example, military developed canned food, right? They never realized that canned food would go in stores and all, and it would be used daily. But that technology where it was developed versus where it was used was very different. So similar, if I know how async await works, how event loop works, maybe in Java I might not need it, but at least I'll have that mental model that okay, I can use it and maybe solve some problems here and there. So that really helps, right? So at least three languages you should know: procedural, functional, object oriented. You should have experience on one of them, or at least a couple of them. And then the last part, which is as we go later into the career, is it good to remain a specialist, right? To just know front end and really know deep into it. Um, I think today's technology, the way it is, um, being a specialist means that you need those kind of opportunities also, right? So if you join Facebook, where they, for them, React is like a specialized domain, right? Where they squeeze every cycle out of the CPU. They focus on every nanosecond of painting time on the screen. It's very different. There you would get the benefits of specialization, right? But if you come to a startup, it's like, okay, it's better if you're a generalist because you're going to be moving around a little bit, right? So your goals, your career goals, will also define whether you become a specialist versus a generalist, and the opportunities that you get.
Got it. Got it. I mean, I don't think there is any cross questioning there. I'm pretty satisfied with that. Let's move on in the 10x discussion itself. Like we have spoken about the last broad level pointers you give. Uh, for example, the simplification, the experimentation with new things, the role models, etc. Uh, a person who's beginning a career and a person who's, what I've understood is a person who's beginning a career and who is probably 3-4 years into it, they'll have a very different approach. So let's discuss about how to strategize, how to plan things, and let's come up with some actionables what a person might do. I mean, if you were in their place right now, starting your career, what would you do differently to reach where you have reached? In the similar duration of time, which I find pretty fast. So, how a person should strategize their own career, and yeah, given the next 5-10 years scenario.
Sure. So I think, again, I would, hygiene stuff you have to do, right? So there is no replacement for putting in the hard work, honing your craft, understanding technology, understanding the fundamentals, understanding new tech that's coming out. There's just no replacement for that, right? You're not going to become a 10x engineer if you say, is there an easy way out? There is just no easy way out, right? There's no silver bullet. So apart from the tech side, where you do focus on technology, how you're building and all of that, trainings and courses and all of that, I would focus on a few other areas that I've seen engineers really do, and I've seen them grow, like absolutely like a hockey stick growth, right? So first and foremost is that at this stage, if you are starting up, you need to build a network, right? And what I mean by building a network is surround yourself with the right people. And it's not that difficult, right? It's actually easy, because today everybody has understood the value of networks, the value of communities that help each other grow. So, like, say for example, I'm part of the AWS community group, right? I've also built user groups around databases, around front end, back end technologies in early stages of my career. Even if you become a part of them, it's going to help you get a lot of opportunities, right? To learn and to debate with people, right? That what can you do better. The second thing that I think to become a 10x engineer is communication. People just, gone are the days when you could be that engineer sitting in a corner, just churning out code, and your input and output were very defined. People told you itna karna hai, itna dena hai, sham tak ho jana chahiye. Those days are gone, honestly. Those, and even if they exist, I would say it's a 1x kind of a task, right? So communication, the ability to talk to anybody, be it your boss, be it your CEO, be it your junior intern, right? Be it a sales guy, be it a customer. I think it's very, very important, because as you become better at engineering and becoming a better engineer, you will be given those opportunities. Like today in my company, if if an engineers that are doing really well, I just want to challenge them more and more, right? I just want to put them in front of customers ki to customer se hi sun le directly ki uski problems kya hai. Why do I need a middleman to do anything, right? So communication and over communication when things are going right or wrong, right, it's very important to learn. Third thing which I cannot understate, and these are not in any particular order, I was just taking down some notes, is consistency. You cannot be a flash in the pan person. Remember that. You cannot be an engineer who says, "Oh, मैंने ये एक project कर दिया था पिछले साल में, which really became big," and that is it. You need to have consistency and discipline. And people notice that everybody around you will notice. It is better to deliver consistently, right? And not really go overboard on something. I think that's still okay, but be consistent. Don't be a flaky person. Don't be like the person who किसी को काम दे दो या you take a project on and I don't know whether it will work or not. If it works, it will be like the biggest thing. But if it doesn't work, then I don't know, it will never get delivered, right? In today's world, delivery is very, very important. Outcome is very important, right? So be outcome oriented, not output oriented. Output means how many hours you're putting and all that. Outcome means even if you put 1 hour or 100 hours, does it impact the revenue, right? Does it impact the customer? Does it impact the team? The other thing that's really helped is basically managing your energy. See, today we live in a world of so many distractions. You got to attend this conference, you can listen to this podcast, you can listen to this influencer, you can attend Sunday Labs. You have work also going on. Inside work, you have 3 different projects going on. There might be an interesting project that you can just do. There are just too many things going on. What you really need to focus on is what matters to you. And many engineers fail to identify what matters. Karna to dur ki baat hai, they don't even know how to identify what matters. They just feel that, okay, if some project is getting more visibility, let me just jump in that team. Right? Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. But whatever space you are in, whatever context you are in, a great engineer will always know what to focus on at any given point of time, which means you should have the courage to say no also. And I falter on it a lot, right? I will say yes because engineers by definition are very optimistic. कि हो जाएगा कर देंगे. But it is important to learn to say no as well, right? Even if it means some people will not be happy, but it's okay. But it has to help you and your company and your career. So say yes to those things only, right? Break the rules. The best engineers I've had never listened to me. Right? Never listen to me. They always they were difficult to manage. They were people that I always had to they were risky, but they always came back with such great creative solutions that in hindsight it was really good that they broke the rules. People who just say ha itna diya hai, itna discussion hua hai, I'll just build that much. I don't think that works, right? It has not. I have not seen anything in my career that works that way. A really great engineer will be like, okay, yeah, I understood these are the 2 options, but I'm going to take the more riskier option, right? Because it has high risk, high reward. So breaking the rules, taking the risks in a more informed manner, not कि कल जाके कुछ आप अजीब सा कर दो. Keep your team informed and all, but break the rules, take the risk, right? It will always help you there. And at the end of it, I would say learn. There is a very interesting quote that many people use, right? It's like learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Because if you're too comfortable, you are actually not growing. You should realize that. You should definitely realize that, right? If you are comfortable, then you are not pushing yourself. You are not reaching your limit or your potential, and then something is wrong. If your manager is not being hard on you, if your team is not being hard on you, if you think every year you're getting 1 rating, 2 rating very easily, then you should really question yourself. That is it a good place to be in? Like I remember, this is a very interesting quote. I remember one of my seniors in my past company. He came from a very big organization, right? What top 5 engineering organizations in the world, and I asked him, Ki, why did you leave that job and come here? This is a startup, right? Why did you join? He said, Arif, in one of the meetings I joined, he was like a VP or something, and he said, when I sat in a meeting, I realized I was the smartest person in the room. And that's when I realized that I have to leave this company. So if you're the smartest person in the room consistently, means you have to go to another company where you're the dumbest person so that you can learn and grow. Right. So
Right.
keep listening, keep be aware of your surroundings, and take those leaps, quantum leaps of growth. And
Mm.
honestly, it sounds very simple, but go back 3 months, go back after this conversation and go back 3 months and say, when did you actually do any of this? And you'll realize that you do this much lesser than you should have, because you end up being comfortable. हाँ, सब सही चल रहा है, मेरे दोस्त लोग इधर ही है, सब इधर ही है, सब अच्छा है. And then you realize you have not grown that, right? And that's not going to help you become 10x. So yeah, I think and look for mentors, guys. If you want to become 10x, find people who have done this journey. My biggest quantum leaps in my life, when I wanted to take risky steps or do something better, it only came because mentors pushed me to do it. And mentors have no other incentive. You don't pay them, they are not your friends. They are just people who are genuinely want to help you, right? My mentor, if I have to talk to him, I have to take a 1 week appointment. But that half an hour with him is amazing, because he just looks at me as an individual, not as a friend or anything. And he says, this is where you are in your career. This is what you should do next. Right. And he'll ask me the right question. He'll never even tell me what to do. He'll just ask me the right questions. So finding those good mentors, invaluable, invaluable.
Got it. And by mentors, it's not like you have to look for someone who is super senior or someone who is a guru, or it could be your manager or senior manager or someone from your team, right?
Absolutely. I think choosing a mentor is as important as choosing a partner, right? Because as a mentor, you should, at the bottom of it, you should ask yourself, right? Does this person want to really see me succeed? Right? Do they have any other interest? And generally, they don't, right? These are very successful people. And try to get mentors who have done the same thing that you are trying to do, right? Not somebody who's Gyan Pandit. Yes, they have their value. And, you know, uh, I would also say that there's not just one mentor that you can have. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, right? And as you grow in your career, like say for example, once you cross 8-9 years of experience, and I'm just using age as a experience as a metric, you'll be getting into managerial situation. So now you need a mentor who's led teams, right? But in the early days of say 2-3 years, 4 years experience, you would need a person who's technically very strong. So mentors also, you should go to the right person at the right time. There is no one size fits all. And you should definitely think about how they want to help, right? And whether they genuinely want to help you see you succeed. So that's how I look at it.
Got it. Thanks a lot. Except there's one thing which I noted: break the rules. I think the people who've joined from Sunday Labs, please take it with a pinch of salt. All right. So, yeah, next thing which I wanted to address, which I think comes very often in the discussions while we hire or while we discuss, is having people from service backgrounds and product backgrounds. It's a very different scenario altogether. The expectations are very different, and the struggle and fight is very different. So how do you see that kind of background? And if someone, let's say, a majority of people are from service background, and how do they, is it about the industry that they are part of, or is it just the mindset, and as you said, the 10x things that these people have, the traits that these people have? Is it about those traits, or is it about the industry itself which is a problem here?
That's an excellent question, and we talk about that all the time when we are thinking about hiring, right? So let's look at it from both perspectives. the company that's hiring you versus your role to get hired, right? Um, when companies are hiring, generally they're looking for people who've done this before, right? Maybe because they don't have a lot of time to groom and train, right? So sometimes we will hire very specific skill set, which could mean that, say, for example, we are looking for somebody who's done payments already, right? Or built a payment system. The reason why we would do that is because we don't want to make mistakes again. So we bring in an expert who's done this before, and their value comes out immediately, right? So that could be one reason. Uh, Now, from the candidate's perspective, right? I think you shouldn't be too worried about this, because unless and until the situation is very specific, that look, we want somebody who's done this before, versus we are looking for a great candidate, which is what we also do most of the time, right? That we are looking for great candidates. I generally don't look at education backgrounds. I generally don't look at specific projects, right? Or company names. I look at what they have done. Does it fall in line with what we are planning to do? And that's it, right? But we always try and give opportunities to people no matter what background they come from. As you become senior, yes, then then we expect you to be a little more focused. But otherwise, services, you shouldn't uh, be worried about it. Now, what does that mean? Because realistically, to bolte na ki, "Arey yaar, I'm trying to join a product company. I come from a services background. They are not hiring me." They're not hiring you not because of your services background. They are not hiring you because you're probably not bringing to the table what they look for, right? And that is what we've been speaking about for the past 50 minutes, is that 10x qualities, right? Whether you have the fundamentals, whether you are able to able to quickly pick up languages, or deliver large scale applications, and all of this you should be able to convey in your interview, right? You should be able to focus, bring all of this to the table. And that can happen if you're running a side hustle, you're building an open source project and all of that, then you have enough evidence to show, right? Again, different companies might look at it differently. There are auto filtering that happens on resumes as well, uh, in which case, the keywords would matter, your experience would matter. If you can put in the right keywords of what is needed, you will get that first interview. And once you get that first interview, you better be prepared. Then you can't say कि मैंने तो सिर्फ यही किया था वही किया था और कुछ नहीं आता मुझे. Then how will you get hired, right? Then though you have to be prepared. So services, I don't think it's a big barrier. Yes, in some companies it is, but you can overcome it by making the right moves right now. And those moves are, have an open source project, attend conferences, build that network, show people that you can deliver on whatever is required, have that product mindset. Today, LinkedIn is a great way to showcase your capabilities, right? You'll see a lot of product managers doing posts on a regular basis. Again, big problem that I've seen where people have come and spoken to me, LinkedIn doesn't work. You know what they do? They make one post once a year and they expect it to work. It can't work, right? You literally have to be at it. You have to be consistent about the posts and the quality of those posts, right? What mind share you're putting out there. You need to have that consistency. Then companies will come and approach you. So yeah, I think it's definitely possible. It shouldn't be, especially people coming from services folks, you shouldn't be tied up on that problem.
Got it. Got it. So I think it's more about the strategy and how you portray yourself. And when you don't have that particular, feather in your hat, you should focus on highlighting the other factors in a better way while building your core skill sets, things that these product companies are probably looking at.
Right.
Got it. Got it. All right. So I think we are left with very less time, although I had promised that this is going to be a 1 hour session, but I still booked for 1.5 hours so that we can take a few questions.
Sure.
So before I take the questions, is there something in your mind that we have probably missed, or something that you would like to cover uh, when it comes to 10x engineers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, the bottom line is being a 10x engineer is contextual. You need to be aware of what people are expecting out of you, and what works in one company may not work in the other. So, as a software engineer, as you owe it to yourself to be able to understand your situation, understand the environment you are in, and take the right steps. Right? It's a matter of finding those opportunities. It's a matter of really working hard towards those opportunities, because I have yet to meet a single manager who says that I don't want one of my team members to succeed. Right?
Yeah,
Never. Everybody wants you to succeed. It's up to you to take those opportunities up, taking those risky projects, taking the projects that nobody wants, right? I'll give you a very good example. Most of the candidates that I interview, so I interview about hundreds of them, right? Every time I've spoken to them, a majority of them, I'll ask them, why are you leaving this company, right? And somebody will say, oh, the compensation is not great and this and that. But a majority will be like, I'm bored here. I don't know what to do, right? I mean, there's no good opportunity. That's not true, right? If you are unable to find opportunities in the company where you are at, you need to build those skill sets to find those opportunities, right? Maybe talk to your manager, maybe, talk to your peers, maybe go one level above your manager, right? And say that, hey, I'm getting bored. I want to do something great for this company. What can I do? That's
right.
the difference, because see, 90% of the people are giving me the exact same answer. यहाँ पे कुछ करने के लिए है नहीं.
Mm,
Right? So does that mean that there are no 10x engineers in that company? No, right? There are. You need to find those opportunities, and like I said, surround yourself with the right people. It seems very trivial. It seems very Robin Sharma types or very aspirational, right? Oh, somebody is now telling me to surround myself with the right people. But it's very simple. Go find the people that you think will help grow your career. Pester them, right? Go sit next to them. I have personally gone and sat next to people and said, I'm not going to talk to you, but I'll just sit next to you and build a rapport, right? A lot of my team members in my company do random 30-minute Slack conversations or Google Meet conversations with other people that they find interesting, right? That they think that they will help. So be proactive. I think that's going to really be a game changer.
all right, all right. Thanks a lot for that answer. I uh, also would like to add here that it's a question of courage, as you mentioned, that talking to your manager and asking for the right kind of work, and then going one ladder above. And most people are actually afraid, and rather than talking to people, they prefer that I should probably leave. And so I think people are afraid to talk to people, and communication skills also come in handy there. All right. I think this is it. I'll take a few questions now. Guys, if you have any questions, you can post in the chat. I'll communicate it to Arif. But while we circulated some Google Forms across our communities, we got a few questions, and we've selected a few which we felt are probably coming in bulk. So very general, common questions. Although I have tried to cover pretty much all those topics themselves, like product companies, service companies, etc. Uh, I'd like to take these questions ahead. Uh, all right. So layoffs. So the current scenario, which people are kind of worried about, is the layoffs, and a lot of candidates that even we have spoken to, they have come back with an answer that they are not looking for joining a very small startup or a company that is dependent on external funds, and they're looking on well established organizations. So how do you see that scenario unfolding, And if there is someone who's starting their career and doesn't want to spoil their profile by being laid off in the next 6 7 months, or somewhat, if somebody is looking at organizations, how does it look like from C-suite position?
The reason I was smiling is because impacting, the layoffs impact. um, See, I'll take everything one by one, right? So the first is, yes, the layoff situation has happened, and it's very disheartening to see how companies are making certain decisions. There was a boom time when these companies had a lot of VC money, uh, but that has kind of dried up, and now all the companies are focusing on profitability rather than just growth, right? So obviously the management has to make different decisions than they did in 2021, and how the COVID really bounced up the tech companies, right? It's unfortunate, but that's how business works. It's a cyclical thing, right? Every 5 6 years, events like this happen. You don't have to be disheartened by it. You may get impacted by it, but it's something that you shouldn't be thinking about, or at least don't let your mind get clouded by this. Make the right decisions for yourself, right? The second thing is, regarding smaller companies versus stable companies. That's a choice you have to make, right? I see all kinds of engineers making different. Some engineers are very clear with me when they are being interviewed, right? That, look, Arif, we have a family situation. I have loans to pay. I cannot afford to not have a job. So therefore, I'm looking for a safe company, right? But believe me, no startup is going to. Very few startups are going to stand up and say, yeah, yeah, we have this and that, and nothing will happen, and guaranteed, job prospects. These are not government jobs, right? There is risk. It's called a startup for a reason, because there are risks associated with it, and there are huge rewards as well. So I would say your financial decisions should be disconnected from your job as much as possible. If you have financial prudence in your life, if you're saving properly, then you can take higher risks in your job, because higher risks would mean higher rewards, right? uh, so it's up to them. And I generally, whenever I talk to candidates, we try and give as clear a picture as possible, very transparent. Even the founders of the company give very transparent feedback on where we are. And in fact, we generally appreciate candidates who ask these questions, right? Who generally ask us that, who are your investors? How long will the company survive? What is your revenue model? Because we also genuinely feel that, yes, this person is interested, wants to understand our business and be with us for the long term. Right? So I think you should ask the questions of your prospective startups. Don't just look at the overall comp number and make your decision of joining or not. Have those conversations. Most CEOs will talk to new candidates about all this. I don't think any CEO is like, don't ask me these questions, just join because I told you so, right? It doesn't happen that way. You can have those open conversations. But having said that, I think the market is normalizing. Most companies are making very prudent decisions. So any new hiring that is happening is based on future forecast, right? It's not like,
Yeah.
let's just over hire and we'll see what we will do with these people, right? It's not that approach anymore. So I think majority of the founders are being very prudent. They know what their runway is like, they know what their revenue prospects are like, and that's when they are hiring. So I think it's a good time overall from that perspective.
So, uh, next question. I'll just jump to the next one, uh, which is about man companies. And I think because in most of our creatives and posts and material, we had mentioned that what is the stark difference between a person joining man companies and a person who's not able to make it through. So I'll just generalize this question, that how different are the processes to hire these people when somebody is looking for a resource. There are expectations set, there are budgets based on those expectations set, and then there are कंपनीज दैट आर हायरिंग दीज 10x folks कि भाई इससे हमें ज्यादा एक्सपेक्टेशन है वर्क वाइज, एंड इसका बजट भी फिर उसी हिसाब से सेट होता है. सो हाउ टू मेक दैट डिफरेंशिएशन एंड हाउ टू मेक दैट डिसीजन from a company perspective, what is the thought process of these companies so that these folks can make that decision in a better way?
Okay. So I think for Mang companies, again, I'm probably not.
Generalizing.
Yeah.
Nine companies is what was mentioned in the question, but we can just generalize.
So I think, see, most of the companies, again, I come back, nobody wants to hire somebody who's an average. Nobody starts off, no hiring manager comes and says, hey, find me an average guy, right? Or an average girl. The whole point is that we are trying to hire the best of the best. Most companies want that, right? Because there are many benefits to that. One is, one A player will, deliver the outcome of, five B players, right? Then managing, it's also a lot of autonomy that you can give them, because on a day-to-day basis, a 10x engineer is fully autonomous, right? You just give them the problem statement and they'll do the research, come back with a solution, implement it, and even deliver it and make sure that adoption is there from the customer, right? So um, every hiring manager wants the best, and what that means is that the budget aspect, right, that is, can we hire this person, is really driven by how the interview goes and what potential does the hiring manager see in that individual, right? And at least in my experience, budgets are quite flexible. If you find a great person and the manager can fight for that person and say, hey, I want this no matter what, then so it's depends on your negotiation skills. It depends on, what kind of other offers you have. I mean, these are just different metrics or different tools that people use, and there's a whole bunch of information on the internet about it. I personally agree and disagree to some of them, so I wouldn't really want to bring them up here. But in general, yes, if you are a good candidate and you put in that hard work, if you can crack that interview, right? If you can not just crack the interview, I would say convey your value during the interview process, right? Just by solving a few problems or algorithmic problems, saying, "Ha, I also did it, and two other people can also do it." You need to bring in, you need to be able to convey your value, right? Like, say, for example, if you're an ex-founder, maybe of a company that ran for 6 months, but you at least know what it takes to hire people or build a new company or do customer research or market research, that's going to give you that one up. And therefore, the budget will stretch for a person like you, right? Because now the hiring manager also sees, oh, yeah, this guy's or girl is not just doing coding, but is bringing five other things to the table, right? So I think that's where I'll end it. Beyond that, honestly, I can't bring in a lot more.
Yeah, true. So now bringing to your organization, this question is actually was not asked in bulk, but generally gets asked in bulk. But you know, this question is sort of from my side as well. I would like to understand that how the fintech, which is from outside, it looks like it's booming, and while the layoffs are happening and there is a investment winter, and because it is funding rich, supposed to be funding rich kind of environment. So how is the uh, scenario with when it comes to the business and from the tech perspective as well, how the evolution is happening among these companies? Are there any innovations, because we keep seeing the similar types of multiple competitors coming into the same industry? So if you could shed some light on how fintech is unfolding, how it looks in the next 5-10 years, and if any suggestion for our people, how they can make it uh, into one of these cash flow
Uh,
for that matter.
no, just send me an email. Just put I'll share my email address and you send me a resume and I'll be happy to review it personally. Right. So very interesting question. So let me break it down into parts, right? So one is fintech as a segment, right? As a sector. Generally, VCs have a flavor of the month, which means that they will focus on a sector. That sector will have a lot of hype. There'll be money flowing into that sector, right? And then different companies come out of this situation, right? Some companies will come up with a really good revenue model or a business model, right? To say that, okay, we are going to take funding, but I know exactly what to build. Cash flow is one of those companies. companies, right? Where we are really solving a very large problem, but in a very focused manner. And we are also focusing on being revenue positive, right? We are looking for profitability first. We are not looking for growth. Now, there are other companies that say, oh, fintech mein investors are investing, they'll come up with some business model. Maybe it's more growth oriented. Maybe, it's more about spending the VC money to show growth. That happens. And this is not just true for fintech, it is true for any segment that you see. Like beach mein Web3 mein, you might have noticed, right? A lot of blockchain use cases came. The technology is amazing, but some companies were built on not sustainable business models. They were very hype driven, and a lot of people invested, or a lot of users came early on, but they couldn't sustain it because there's no real value being provided. There are
Regulation,
sorry
the regulation also played a
regulation
picture.
also came in. Yeah, and there are many macroeconomic stuff are going on, right? Fintech, maybe RBI is now getting more tighter. So a lot of use cases that we thought were very easily doable, now we have to work with the government, with regulations so that they work, right? So I think so now coming back to your question, right? Fintech as a space is a very large problem to solve, right? There is enough space for many competitors to come in. It is not a winner takes all market, right? It's not like एक कंपनी आएगी पूरा मार्केट शेयर कैप्चर कर लेगी, किसी को जगह ही नहीं रहेगी, ऐसा है नहीं. फिनटेक में बहुत सारे यूज केसेस हैं. The innovation is really at the cusp of the technology and the problem statement itself, which is what makes it even more interesting. It is not just ki, hey, can we just build a tech and the problems will get solved? No, you have to look at the people, you have to look at the market, you have to look at the cost of capital. There are so many factors you have to think of before coming up with a product, right? So it's a long game. It won't get solved overnight, but it's a very high reward place to be in, right? Not to say that others are not there. There is, of course, clean tech is there. In fact, there is elderly tech, there is HR tech. So many areas where innovation is happening as we speak, and the prospects over there are also equally good. But fintech is getting a lot more focus because that's where we are at right now. How to get into fintech? Well, it's all technology, right? And understanding the domain. We hire product managers, we hire engineers who come from other fintech backgrounds. We hire people from e-commerce backgrounds. We hire people from different areas as well. We've had people from Web3 also background, right? It's just that you should know that it's a problem that you want to solve. Like we feel like cash flow is solving the credit problem for MSMEs, right? It's going to really impact the GDP of the country. So I am personally, and the entire team is very interested in solving this problem, right? We are personally invested in. Similarly, you should find your area. कि आपको consumer में देखना है, B2B solve करना है, या आपको कोई different area of fintech solve करना है, you can do it. And like I said, you should resonate with the problem statement. It's not just fintech. I want to join a fintech. That shouldn't be the case. Go one level deeper and resonate with the problem that you want to solve, and then join the company. I think you will fare much better than others.
Got it. So Sunday Labs has served multiple fintechs and banks in the past, but I think now the kind of changes that we've seen, they are pretty amazing, and it seems promising. So just wanted to check with you whether the inside story is true, or and how does it look for our people. So I think this is it. I'm all out of questions at the moment. I'm sure there would be innumerous more questions, but we are out of time as well. We are overshooting by at least 15 minutes. But so on closing notes, if there is anything that you would like to say to our audience, that would be.
I think just one last statement. Because you guys are attending this, you are already one step ahead of everybody else in your journey of your career, right? Most people don't even want to get to think about all these things. So you should pat yourself on the back, and Sunday Labs, is doing an amazing job exposing you to all these conversations. And I think having these conversations, not just, in Sunday Labs or like organized like this, I think you should do them amongst yourselves, amongst your peers, and you are well ahead in your journey to become 10x, right? 10x, your 10x should keep going ahead and ahead. Improve 1% every day. It's not something aspirational. Again, I think you should really do that, and you will be there in no time, right? You would go back in your journey and you'll say, hey, मैं कहाँ था या थी और आज मैं कहाँ हूँ. So I think it's going to make a huge difference, and best of luck on all of your journeys. And thank you so much, Sunday Labs, for doing this. Really honored to be.
Not really. I mean, when I said it, that we've started this new edition of Sunday Talks, and we've started it on a super high note. I really meant it, and I mean, I did not expect that you would be so humble and kind to agree to do this on such a short notice. And many thanks from me and from the entire Sunday Labs team. I'm sure we'll definitely get a chance to speak multiple times. And thank you so much. And please have a great weekend ahead.
Yeah. Have a great weekend, guys. Thank you so much.